When a West Virginia man and his dog encounter a mysterious creature in the darkness, he never imagines that the encounter will lead to a shocking discovery. Armed with a shotgun and the shooting precision of Annie Oakley, he manages to defend himself, but it's the pictures he takes that are the real prize. Welcome to the In-Between. I'm Carol Ann, and today we have 4 amazing Bigfoot stories I just have to share. And this first one has something extra for those that appreciate evidence. This story comes from one of our very own in-betweeners, Doc Needles. And make sure you stick around to the end of the story because Doc brought the receipts. Doc used to live in West Virginia on 99 beautiful acres. One night, while he's out walking with his pit bull, he sees a pair of eyes up ahead of them, staring at them. Doc runs to the house, gets his dog inside to safety, and grabs his shotgun. By the time he loads up and heads back outside, the eyes are gone. Doc wants to relax, but his gut is just telling him, stay alert, this might not be over yet. So with his shotgun at the ready, loaded with a combo of double-aught buckshot and slugs, he starts moving across the yard. After he's gone about 50 feet, Doc sees a huge 8 to 9 foot tall dark shape charging at him from out of the darkness behind his garage. He aims the shotgun and empties it into the beast, watching the creature get pushed back for just a second over and over as each shot finds its mark. The next morning, officers from the Department of Natural Resources, or DNR, also known by some as Game and Wildlife, show up at Doc's property along with several other people without identification. Apparently, Doc's neighbor heard him shooting the night before and checked out his window to see what was going on and called the DNR. The officers ask Doc what happened, and Doc walks them through the whole event, ending his reenactment by telling everyone there that he hasn't missed a shot in 40 years, and it wasn't a bear. One of the men there with no ID asks him, "Are you sure you hit it?" Doc just stares back at the man as one of the Game and Wildlife guys who's known Doc for years chimes in to say, "I can vouch for him. If he says he hit it, he hit it. I've never seen him miss a shot in all of the years I've known him." Another unidentified man who's been standing a ways off and studying the ground says, "Bring the kit." Doc walks over to see what he's found. Blood. Doc starts tracking the blood, which leads him to a handprint so big that the hand it belongs to could easily grip a full-grown man's head. They all continue to track the blood, but find nothing. Someone goes back and sprinkles some white powder over every speck of blood, and they all pack up and leave without saying another word to Doc. Until about a week later, Doc gets a visit from the game warden, who tells him, "You need to forget everything that happened." Doc's response, "Next time, I'll bring out the 50 cal. Lucky for us, that's not quite the end of the story. Doc manages to get pictures of one of the footprints and sent it to us here at the In-Between. Take a look at these. Is that crazy or what? What do you guys think? Special thanks to In-Betweener Doc Needles for sending us not only his story, but these awesome pictures taken right in his backyard as well. The winter of 2023 was not a good one for May and Jake. Not their real names, though, as they would like to keep their privacy. They live on about an acre of pretty flat land in upstate South Carolina, just north of Union, that butts up against forest land with a creek bottom. May and Jake are an older couple, with Jake being disabled and almost completely bedridden, leaving May to take care of the house and their dog, who we'll call Max. Max is getting up there in years himself and lives outside on a run line anchored by 2 trees with a long lead, giving him a pretty big area to roam, though these days he's pretty content to pick a spot and just watch the world go by around him. Life is pretty routine in their house. May gets up early, feeds Max, even though he usually hasn't finished his food from the day before, takes care of Jake, and usually heads to bed early. Round February, May starts to hear this strange whooping and whistling coming from the forest, and would occasionally wake up at night to hear her neighbor's cows frantically mooing. She doesn't really think twice about it. I mean, she's far too busy taking care of Jake and herself and their dog to worry about whatever soap opera drama is playing out between the forest inhabitants. Until one night, as May settles into bed and turns off the light, a little after 7 or so, she glances out the bedroom window. There's really not a whole lot to see out the bedroom window because the bottom half is pretty much all taken up by this window air conditioner. And the top, she's got a shade coming down, but it doesn't quite meet the top of the air conditioner, so there's a little bit of space that she can see out. But instead of looking at whatever sliver of night sky she can see, she sees the clear silhouette of a large head lit up by the yard light, slightly bent over with eyes staring down at her. The yard light lit up the right side of its head so May could see its black face and hair. Its deep-set eyes glare at May for several seconds before being distracted by something happening at the neighbor's yard, causing it to look to its left. It then turns its eyes back to May, who, whether through perception or plain fear, senses an evil from this thing. Scared out of her mind, May turns over in bed and asks this thing to go away and leave her alone. Now, the bedroom window we are talking about, that gap between the shade and the air conditioner, sits at about 7.5 feet off the ground. And if this thing is bending over slightly, that would put this creature at around 9 feet tall. A few nights later, May is again lying in bed getting ready to go to sleep when she happens to look through the same window gap above the air conditioner. Just like a few nights earlier, she sees the same silhouette of the large black head looking down at her. And again, she rolls over, wishing for this thing to just please go away. A few more nights later, same routine. May's lying in bed, getting ready to go to sleep. She looks up through the same window gap, and just like the last 2 times, she sees the same silhouette of the large head looking down at her. This time, she actually moves to the other side of the bed and pulls the covers up over her head so that whatever this thing is, it can't actually see her. She doesn't know what else to do. The next day, May covers the window gap with tinfoil, so whatever that monster is, it can't look in at her anymore. That's when the tapping starts. Every few nights, she hears this tap, tap, tap on the same window. But evidently, not being able to see May frustrates the beast, who shows its displeasure by smacking at the side of her house. And May notices that in the mornings, when she goes out to top off whatever food Max has left in his dish from the day before, the food is now all gone, and she's pretty sure it ain't Max that's eaten it. After a few more nights of this new routine, May is at her kitchen window one night looking out at the yard when the motion sensor light mounted to the railing on the back steps about 4 feet off the ground comes on. In the bright light, May clearly sees 2 hairy legs walking through the left side of the light's glow, about 1.5 feet away from the light, so just outside her back door. The legs stop, then quickly walk off to the left, out of the light and into the darkness. Now, if all of that isn't bad enough, because I know it would sure scare the crap out of me, the biggest shock is the next morning. She goes out as usual to fill Max's dish, but she doesn't see Max. She looks around, she calls for him, then she sees him lying on the ground, but he won't come to her. Fearing the worst, given Max's age, May hurries over to him, only to discover that he's not lying there just because of some health issue. He's not moving because it looks like something has taken a few freshly cut, pencil-thin saplings, woven them together, and strung them through Max's collar, effectively pinning him to the ground. And Max's collar is pretty tight, so it's pretty unlikely that those saplings got stuck in there all by themselves. Takes May over an hour to cut poor Max free. The good news is, that seems to be the last of May's nightly visits. And who knows if it's because of the abundance of deer in the area or her close proximity to power line corridors that can act as virtual highways for any animals migrating in any direction. One of those corridors is a straight line from Union right into the heart of the Inori Ranger District of the Sumter National Forest, which includes more than 170,000 acres of dense forest. Whatever this creature was, seems to have gone back to the virtual highway and moved on to greener pastures. For May, Jake, and Max's sake, let's hope it stays gone. In August of 2022, a couple goes out with their young daughter Lily into the woods somewhere in Northern California for a relaxing picnic and some time in the woods. They eat their lunch, and Lily wanders away to go explore the nature all around her. About 15 minutes later, the parents hear her scream. They jump up and immediately take off running in the direction they heard the scream come from. As they're running through the thick trees, worst case scenarios running through their heads, they stop dead in their tracks. In front of them, sitting on a log, is their little Lily right next to an 8-foot-tall creature with long, tangled hair covering its face, but two dark, intelligent eyes peeking through. Afraid that if they storm in causing a ruckus, the creature might become violent towards Lily, the parents stay put, just watching from behind a bush. They watch the two, Lily and the hairy giant, playing a game of copycat, with the creature mimicking Lily's actions of clapping her hands, stomping her feet, tilting her head, and scratching her cheeks, all the while emitting a low, loud, grumbling sound, almost like laughter. After a few minutes that felt like an eternity for Lily's parents, Lily stands up, waves goodbye to the creature, and heads back to where she thought her parents would be waiting. As Lily leaves, the creature immediately turns his attention to Lily's parents, still hiding in the bushes, stares at them for a moment, gets up, and walks away. Lily's parents turn and take off, running in the same direction Lily had just gone. They catch up to her and are more than a little relieved to find out that Lily's just fine. Her only regret? That she didn't pet him. The author of this Bigfoot sighting didn't give his name, so we will call him Mike and his girlfriend Mandy. In 1998, Mike is 22 years old and has been living in the area of the Menifee and Morgan County lines in Kentucky for 4 years. His girlfriend Mandy is a local girl who's lived in the area her entire life. Mike has a Honda 450 Foreman ATV and has spent many hours running trails all over the Daniel Boone National Forest. So one nice October night, Mike and Mandy hop on the back of the ATV and set out down an old logging trail that, if you just stay on it, keep heading east, and don't take any of the myriad of trails that branch off of it, it'll eventually take you into Daniel Boone National Forest. The road is pretty wide at first, considering it used to have tractors and machinery running in and out all the time. But eventually it squeezes down into a much narrower old horse trail. No big deal. They've both been down this and all of the other trails many times and are familiar with every twist and turn. So they're taking the winding trail at a leisurely 5 to 10 miles an hour and are soon at one of Mike's favorite spots, a small circular pond in a tiny clearing just off to the right of the trail. Sometimes Mike would drive up here all by himself at night, shut off all of his lights and his engine, and just watch the stars, just soaking in the sounds and the smells of the woods around him. He even saw his first shooting star at this pond. The pond is clear of trees for about 20 feet all the way around. So Mike pulls off the horse trail and drives around to the far side of the pond, turns off the ATV's lights and engine. They both start moving to get up from the four-wheeler, but before they can even get their butts off the seat, a deafening roar comes from inside the tree line, no more than 150 feet away. This is a sound Mike has never heard before. It is loud and it is close. Mike is freaking out and Mandy screams as Mike starts up the ATV and takes off back toward the trail. He gets the four-wheeler back on the horse trail, heading towards the old logging road and toward home. Mandy holds on tight from behind, instinctually keeping a low profile and keeping quiet so Mike can concentrate on the road. Mike navigates the windy horse trail, managing to avoid all the trees and not run off the road in his haste. His ATV has 3 headlights, 2 of which are fixed straight ahead, with a third in the middle that turns with the handlebars. So every time he has to turn, the light swings as well and scans the tree lines. Mike doesn't see anything, but the trees are really dense and there isn't much in the way of moonlight to help, so he has no idea if he could even see anything more than 10 feet from the quad anyway. And while he's trying to navigate the crazy meandering path, Mike keeps thinking, what animal could make that sound? It had to be an animal, right? But what animal makes that kind of terrifying scream? Finally, they reach the old logging road where the trail straightens and widens and the trees even thin out. That's where his nightmare really begins. Mike hadn't seen anything following them so far, and he doesn't want to lose control in his panic and get into a wreck, so he only speeds up a little and starts to relax just a little when he sees it. Off to his left, so looking south, the same side of the path that the pond was on, he sees a dark figure running parallel to them about 100 feet away. Looks like a very big, very tall, human-ish thing running on 2 legs. Mike sees it, turns his head back to look at the road, and then looks at it again. It's keeping pace with them. As he stares at the beast, just hoping this is just a dream, he looks down at his digital backlit speedometer. 22 miles per hour, or 35 kilometers per hour. To Mike's horror, the logging road takes a pretty good turn to the left, not only making them have to slow down a little, but also now putting them on an intersecting path with whatever that thing is. Mike carefully makes the turn, and then once they're on a straight path again, opens the throttle as far as it will go. He looks to his left to see how much ground the creature has gained by their change of course, only to see nothing. He looks ahead. Nothing. He even looks to his right. Nothing. He turns his head to the side and yells to Mandy, "Did you see it?" Mandy's response, "I didn't see anything. Did you see something?" After approximately 1/4 of a second pause, Mike yells back, "Nope," thinking, "I'll tell her when we get back home." Doesn't take long before the two make it back to Mike's house, where they go over the entire encounter again and again. But Mike never does tell Mandy what he saw. Mike sells his ATV and moves to the city the next summer. But the four-wheeler bug bites him again, and he buys another one a year later, but this time does his riding in a completely different area. But about a year after that, so the summer of 2001, he just can't help himself. He loads his quad onto his trailer and takes it back to the area in the Daniel Boone National Forest and rides again to the beautiful, quiet pond just off the horse trail. He gets off the ATV and just stands on the banks of the pond for a few minutes. He skips a few rocks across the pond's glassy surface, gets back on the quad, and leaves. It was a beautiful day. How is that for a veritable cornucopia of Bigfoot encounters? If this little nugget of storytelling nourishment only served to whet your appetite for more, click right here. Be careful out there, and I will see you here again on the In-Between.